Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Illustration Department podcast. My name is Giuseppe Castellano. In this podcast, I talk to folks in illustration, graphic design, publishing, animation, and other creative fields about their work, the lessons they've learned, and the bumps and bruises they've experienced along the way. In this episode, my guest is cartoonist, writer, and comic Emily Flake. As an illustrator, try not to put excessive pressure on yourself or your work, especially these days. As Emily and I discuss, your art doesn't deserve it, and neither do you. Among other topics, Emily talks about her work as a staff artist for The New Yorker. We discuss what rejection is and isn't for illustrators and comics. And Emily explains what it means to burden our work with the weight of the world. I hope you enjoy our conversation. I was actually going to postpone today's recording, Emily.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
And look, I postponed it for you.
Yeah, a little.
By my own
By 20 minutes.
intransigence. Right.
Well, anytime I do anything like that, I always blame my kids.
Right.
And even if they're not at fault, I just blame the fact that I have kids.
Yeah, this is somehow 100% my daughter's fault.
I mean, it's tangentially, kind of, right? I mean,
Right. Sure.
don't our kids take a little bit away from us when...
Mostly our brains.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, 100%. How old are your kids?
My son is 17 and my girls are 14.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's, you're in it.
In it a little bit. Yeah, I like to say that... Well, let's get into it. Let's talk about a little bit of family life. Because family life is a subject matter that you obviously explore with your work. Mm-hmm. Parenthood specifically. I like to say that parenthood requires 3 sacrifices. Your body, in this order. Your body,
Mm-hmm.
your mental health, and your money.
Yeah, I think that's 100% accurate.
In the early years, it's your body. You're exhausted, physically exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
Teen years, it's emotionally exhausting. I will never forget the first time my son said to me, "I hate you." That's still digs into the side of my ribs.
Sure.
And then the college years is financially exhausting.
Yeah, I feel like those 3 things have been sort of braided in pretty equally over the course of my daughter's life. She's 12, so we're just kind of like getting to the foothills of the adolescent mountain. But
yeah, one of the mantras that I think has helped me stay centered as a parent is it's only temporary.
Yeah, all of this is only temporary. Our entire lives are completely temporary.
I think you said this on a podcast I listened to, another podcast you were a guest on, or maybe I read this, something about how we're all going to die. No one's going to visit our graves after some time, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, pretty much. I do find our, inevitable deaths kind of comforting in a weird way. Yeah, it's it's the amount of time we're actually here and doing things is so small. Yeah. So it really is a good reminder not to sweat it.
You know what's funny? When I was putting my notes together for this, and this is the other thing too, I typically, what I do usually when I have a guest on is like days before, because I don't want to do it the minute before or that morning, because I hate that energy of like, oh shit, I have a test I haven't studied for kind of energy.
Yeah.
Hate that.
Same.
So I just throw some notes. I literally throw questions. Like, I do have a question in here that I'm not going to ask you. It was one of my first draft questions. It was, how do you write and draw jokes? Like, I'm not going to ask you that question. It's too big of a question. It's not that clever. So anyway, I just throw a bunch of questions, and then days after I'm editing it, tweaking it, and thinking about it and whatever. 75% of my notes are complete for you. So that was another reason why I was like, maybe we should postpone because I need more time. Plus, you've been interviewed by like NPR and a bunch of like big shot podcasts, and you're the kind of guest that I get really extra stressy about, if I'm being honest with you.
Right. I mean, I feel like my inability to put something on an iCal correctly should absolutely undercut any kind of stress that you would be feeling.
Right.
Also, if we get to the end of this and you're like, I have follow-up questions, I'm always happy to hop on like for a follow-up.
Oh, I always have follow-up questions. I actually try, I struggle, not struggle, it's not the right word, but I do hold myself back because these episodes could go 3, 4, 5 hours easily. I talk like incessantly, I've realized. So as you can tell already with the next
that's a good quality for a podcaster.
I guess bad quality if you are really worried about saying something dumb. Eventually you will.
Right. Yeah, just, as a numbers game.
It's a numbers game. Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you still, is family life, would you say, the primary subject matter that you explore with your illustrations, cartoons, etc., or another like equally weaved in thing?
That's a really good question. I don't think I think it's more equally woven in with other things now, in part because, obviously it's not like, well, she's 12, I'm done, but the really like intensive, all-consuming quality of parenting, like a baby and a toddler, is, it's just a lot less intense and time-consuming than it is.
Right.
And it's a different sort of relationship to, it sounds terrible to call it the material when I'm talking about, a person.
Right.
But she's much more her own person now.
Sure.
So it's like the stakes are kind of different. I'm less of sort of a all-encompassing shell around her, and more like, we're people that live in the same house. Will it bum you out entirely if I put my contacts in on camera?
No, I'm not recording video. I'm not recording video.
Oh, great.
It's just all audio.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sitting here thinking that, don't worry about me. I'm just there thinking like, is it weaved in or woven in?
Well, yeah, that's also a good question.
That's been in my brain for the past 3 minutes or so.
I feel like it can probably go either way. I don't know. English is crazy.
There was a time when I would be really not stressed, but worried about that. And I'd, be like, okay, how can I edit this out or whatever? But you said something in another interview. You referred to sort of a state of being as a preferred state of being as cheerful fucketism.
Yes.
And I really like that. I want to be, you said you were a believer of it. I want to be a believer of it. It sounds great. I don't know if I can pull it off though.
It's hard to, it's not something I achieve easily, but when I'm there, it's great. That is my preferred mode of thinking and or just being in the world. But yeah, it's tough. And it's, it's a moving target, especially as you move through life. I'm 47. So there's now like sort of a quality of recklessness that I realize now goes better with being young.
You mean you can't have one beer and stay awake?
Oh man, it's what a sad story that is. I mean, I loved drinking, not even like oh shit, I have a problem. It was just like a fun thing to do. And at this point, like whiskey was my best friend, and now it's like my worst enemy.
Yep.
For the most boring of reasons. I'm like, I haven't like, I never say never, but like I'm like I very rarely drink anymore, and I don't know, sucks.
Yeah, you and I are exactly the same age by weeks.
Oh, really? When's your birthday?
May.
Okay.
77.
Nice. Gemini or a Taurus?
Taurus.
Right.
Oh, I'm fully Taurus. Fully Taurus. Hard-headed. I want nothing more than to just jab my hands into like a big pile of dirt. I mean, I am all about that environment, gardening energy too. So nice. Full Taurus.
Yeah, I'm embarrassingly Gemini.
My dad is so Gemini, and this is a true story. He has 2 first names. The name his mother gave him and the name his father gave him when he was born.
What are his names?
Giuseppe, so I'm a junior, and Pietro, which is Peter in Italian.
You're right. You're right.
Long story, very, very short. My grandparents were farmers in southern Italy, goat farmers specifically. And when my dad was born in mid-June, my grandfather was off with his goats. He would go off on days at a time with his tending to his goats or whatever, feeding them, or I don't know what the hell he was doing with them. And my father was born, and my grandmother's brother had either just moved to South America. I think he fled to South America and was never heard from again. And his name was Pietro. So my grandmother named my dad Pietro in honor of her brother, who she thought had died. And so anyway, my grandfather comes back. Oh, look at that. There's a baby. There it is. And and said, well, obviously his name is Giuseppe, because Italian tradition is you have to name your kids after a certain like hierarchy of, parents. And it's usually, obviously it's the male first and then the mom. And anyway, trying to make this long story short, my grandfather was like, over my dead body, his name's not Pietro. His name's going to be Giuseppe after my brother. And so my grandfather went to the town hall and officially made the name Giuseppe. And till the day she died, my grandmother called my dad Pietro. She never called him Giuseppe. Depending on who you talk to in my family, he's either Zio Pietro or Zio Giuseppe.
Oh my God. I love a lifelong grudge match.
It's a lifelong grudge match. Uh-huh.
Mwah.
Yep. Anyway.
That's where my husband's family is from. Well, a quarter of his family is from Southern Italy.
Love it.
And he's been trying to get his Italian citizenship, but there's wrinkles in the timeline that are making it more difficult. But do you have Italian citizenship?
No, I've been dragging my feet on that for many years. And today of all days brings to light my procrastination is probably going to cost us, I don't know.
No, get it.
Our
Then you have the
liberty or
whole
something.
EU,
Exactly.
Your kids could go to college in Europe. It's
Yep. And we could, just in case something happens in this country, I could easily live in Southern Italy on the Adriatic Sea next to my family. That would be amazing.
Worse ways.
Exactly. Enough about me. What the fuck are we talking about me for? So I've had a few guests over the years, Jason Chatfield, Julia Wertz, Roz Chast, who've found a way to weave, there's that word again, comedy into their cartoons or comics or illustrations or whatever you want to call it. I never know what to call cartoons and comics other than they're illustrations. I mean, sometimes I feel weird about calling them illustrations, but I don't know why. They are illustrations. They've managed to do that. When you sit down to draw a cartoon, let's say, is your default approach from a place of comedy, or do you not think of it that way?
My default approach is almost always from a place of comedy. Yeah. I think that's the lens through, that's my main lens through which I look at the world. I mean, certainly there are times when, like if I'm just sitting down, writing down my thoughts, or like if I have, an essay that needs to come out, then I'm not necessarily looking for the joke angle. But yeah, I think I primarily try to look for the humorous, slant on whatever's running through my brain that day, for sure.
Where is that coming from? Is that just a natural evolution of you in terms of processing personal, global whatevers? I mean, is that just how it just comes about, or is it something that you discovered and leaned into and realized that it was helping you in some other way? Comedy, I mean.
Yeah, I think that absolutely is an element that's always like been part of, even if not my personality, my suite of desires, let's say.
Okay.
First of all, I mean, I genuinely believe that humor is crucial to just making human life bearable. We need our funny little clowns to kind of, like literally provide levity.
Right.
Philosophically, like very firmly in the tank for humor and comedy. And in terms of like sort of my development as a person, I was always like drawn to funny stuff as a kid. I really feel like the first thing that I remember watching or seeing or taking in at all as an adolescent that like really made my heart beat faster, like whatever this is, I want this, was Janine Garofalo on the MTV half-hour comedy hour.
Yeah.
And I can't find this anywhere, but I swear to God it happened. It was like the spring break edition, and they'd sent her down to Florida to do a set for like these spring breakers, and it was not her crowd. And she she got kind of defiant with them, if I recall. And it was like electrifying. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but I want it. I mean, I was a very awkward and not well-liked child and adolescent. And I think that is a pretty common origin story for a lot of people who get into comedy, because it's also, it's a way to sort of like grease the skids in terms of like being around other people. Right. So yeah, I mean, I think it's no mystery where this comes from for me.
This podcast is produced by the Illustration Department, a global leader in online education for illustrators. Visit illustrationdept.com for offerings like mentorships and portfolio reviews, testimonials, our alumni showcase, our best-selling Substack, and more. That's illustrationdept.com. And now, back to our conversation. When I think of New Yorker cartoonists, we'd be here all day long and not scratch the surface of listing names of, New Yorker cartoonists over the years. When I'm looking at your art, I don't know, I see a little, maybe there's a little Sam Gross in there. Maybe there's a little Charles Addams. Certainly I see a little Roz Chast, I feel like. But who in the New Yorker space inspired you, if any?
In the New Yorker space, I mean, the first thing that I remember looking at as a kid was Gahan Wilson. So I think the sort of like the dementedness and the kind of like friction between like the spooky and the humorous, like that juxtaposition, I think I responded to even as a kid. But I would say that besides Roz, who is obviously like a huge influence, kind of like spiritually, if not like technique wise, Lynda Barry and Sherry Flanagan are the two like various, like super thick antecedents. But I mean, they're not really in the New Yorker world, but they definitely informed my whole existence.
Yeah. Jason and I talked about Chatfield, and I talked about how comedians and cartoonists are cut from the same cloth.
For sure.
I did not mean to make that sound alliterative, but there it was.
Right.
Similar experiences, ways of thinking about the world, etc. What similarities do you see between a life as a performer? Do you prefer to call yourself a comic or a comedian or a performer? What's your preference?
I mean, I will happily take comic. I mean, sometimes I just say performer because I feel like, do I really get to call myself a comedian? Because I'm not like going up every night, because I'm old and I have a kid. Yeah. But yes, I do. I certainly do stand-up comedy. So, like in terms of like the joke generation, the making of the jokes, it feels like, things for me kind of start out as stem cells, and I can see how they could kind of like go either way in terms of, and I there's a lot of cross-pollination there. But yeah, I mean, I think because at heart, I think if you're a person who deals in jokes, a big part of the reason that you do what you do is because you want people to love you. So I think whether that comes out in terms of like making people laugh with drawings or making people laugh from a stage just depends on what your capacity for in public ritual humiliation is. And mine's pretty high.
Obviously,
not to brag.
Yeah. I think mine's pretty up there. I wouldn't consider it to be high, but hey, I've had a podcast for many years and felt very comfortable saying a lot of really dumb shit that I'm sure years from now I'll look back and be like, God, I can't believe I actually thought that was smart.
Well, at least it'll, be recorded forever.
There it is. Obviously rejection is another lovely connection between being a comic and being an illustrator.
For sure.
How do you deal with rejection, or do you not even see that as something that needs to be dealt with?
It no longer bothers me at all. I mean, like I am just so completely used to 90% of whatever I make, just, not hitting, not working, whatever. It doesn't bother me. Where I get in my head is in situations where I'm having trouble feeling like a sense of like, I belong here. Right. It's more of like a social rejection than like a rejection of my work. Like no one's ever going to hurt my feelings with notes or like, yeah, this wasn't for us. But yeah, if I'm in like a professional or performance situation where like I don't really feel like I have my feet under me, like it's very easy for me to spiral to like, oh, I'm just going to be in the corner.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a hard time. That's a situation in which like I have a hard time finding that cheerful fuckidism,
Right.
and it would, come in handy.
Yeah. Yeah. I was doing some writing this morning on what rejection is and isn't for illustrators specifically. And you said it perfectly.
Right.
It's just not, it's not, they're not rejecting anything. They're not refusing you. They're just saying, yeah, no thanks. That's all it is. And I think if more people embrace that, they feel a lot better about their careers. Side note.
Oh God.
I'm writing this on Substack, and it'll come out in a couple of days from this recording. So by the time this comes out, it will have already been out, which is a weird processing of time. I just realized. Anyway, God, do I love Substack. Everybody's flailing around going like, what social media platform should I be on? Just stop looking. It's Substack. I mean, that's it.
Right.
End of story. Anyway, in this article, I wrote, quote, ill opinion, someone's ill opinion of your work, and thought, does that even make sense? Sounds like it makes sense. So I did a little online sleuthing. Next thing I know, I'm onto this Jonathan Swift quote. And this happens all the time. As I'm sure you put together a joke, you start looking into some stuff, and you just go down rabbit holes left, right, and center. So I'm onto this quote from Jonathan Swift, and it goes, reasoning will never make a man correct an ill opinion, which by reasoning he never acquired. For in the course of things, men always grow vicious before they become unbelievers. Which, given the date of this recording, I feel like is a very timely quote politically.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Happy end of the American experiment day, by the way.
Yay.
Hey.
Extra glass of bourbon for me tonight. No.
Right. Seriously.
Maybe not. I'm kidding.
But yeah, I mean, it's tough because, in any and this is something that I think about a lot too. Like if in any creative field, if it's your job, you're in the sort of weird position of like putting your heart for sale. It's something that really comes from yourself in a way that like an office job doesn't necessarily. And it makes your relationship with your art very fraught. There are definitely times where it's just like, do I even fucking like doing this? I don't know.
Yep.
And in terms of like rejection or anything like that, I almost feel like, it's going to be pretty tough for somebody to say something worse to me than I've said to myself 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely like, there's a cartoonist who called me, not to my face, but like in a comment on Facebook, a hack.
What the fuck?
And
and his name is Jason Chatfield. I'll email him later. Tell him off.
Son of a bitch. He's a monster. Let's just get that out there. Yeah, just the worst.
I mean, let's just keep it 100, as the kids like to say.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just change the name of the whole podcast to Jason Chatfield is a monster.
That's the title of the episode. If I did titles of episodes, which I don't, which I regret. Side note. I used to really struggle with that when I started the podcast. I was like, should it just be the name of the person, or should I make it like some pithy, whatever, quirky little? And I kind of regret that. I think it would have been fun, but oh well.
Yeah,
it's just going to say Emily Flake. That's it.
Right. That works. Let's keep it simple.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How long have you lived in Brooklyn?
21 years.
Emily, we have weird, very strange parallels. For example, we're both more or less the same age. We both graduated from college in 1999, which obviously would make sense, I guess, if you're not held back or whatever, or advanced. You graduated from MICA. I'm from Baltimore.
Okay.
I was considering MICA, and I don't really know why I didn't apply. That's another thing to unpack later. And you lived in Brooklyn for 21 years. My wife and I lived in New York for 21 years, most of the time in Brooklyn, in Windsor Terrace.
No shit. Where did you live?
I lived on 15th Street, Prospect Park Southwest.
Okay.
So where the F train stop is on that corner of the circle.
Right.
One of those buildings.
Okay. Oh, God. Those look... I've never been inside any of them. They look amazing from the outside.
They were lovely. We had to sell the apartment after we realized we were having twins.
Right. Yeah,
So,
that will throw a monkey wrench
Emily,
into the hole.
it was our forever apartment, literally our forever apartment. And then the doctor was like, "You're having twins." And we're like, "Fuck!" So we moved to Bay Ridge, which is lovely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love Bay Ridge.
Is that where you are now?
No, and then we moved again, and now we're out in the suburbs in west of Philly, which is Chadds Ford, Kennett Square, that sort of area, Brandywine. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, in another parallel, Bay Ridge is definitely on our radar. Our landlord is just raised our rent by quite a bit, and has indicated that he would like to raise it by more. So we're like, all right, where else?
Oh, Emily,
where else can we go?
Stop looking. Bay Ridge.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. We raised our kids there. We love it to death. Super diverse, great food, great location.
We were just there yesterday. We went to the movie theater, and then we went to Ballady for groceries. It's great.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Is there like a New Yorker thing? Because you're not from New York per se. You've lived. Are you from Connecticut? Were you born in Connecticut?
I was. Yeah, I was born and raised in Manchester, which is 2 towns east of Hartford.
Gotcha.
If you like ex-mill towns, that's your jam.
All right. I'll swing by later.
And then, school in Baltimore, and then I lived in Chicago for 4 years before I moved to New York.
All right, there you go. I'd never been to Chicago, so the parallels broken. Too bad.
Right.
What was I going to say? Oh, the New York existence. There's like, you know how like there are certain things that are considered very New Yorker, whatever, bagels and lox.
Right.
That's something that I was like, what? Why are you putting fish on a fucking bagel with cream cheese? This is disgusting.
Oh, hard disagree. I love bagels and lox.
All right. Is there a New Yorker perception of a New Yorker that you just either never adopted or outright hate? I outright hate lox. I think they're just disgusting, but that's just my thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, I think I think I'm pretty down with all of it. Except pigeons. I do not like pigeons.
Gross.
I feel disgusting.
Rats
just
wings.
Garbage birds.
It's not their fault though. It's not their fault.
No,
This is something I learned recently. Actually, it's another rabbit hole I went down. Long story short, we did that to them.
Oh yeah, I mean, they are as we made them. And truly, can any of us be blamed for our own nature, whether God or man-made?
I blame the universe or kids.
Yeah.
See, it all goes back to parenthood.
Yep, exactly.
You just blame being a parent on everything.
Oh.
This is an episode. If I could lock episodes, this is one I'd lock so my kids don't listen to it.
Right.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Just more grist for the eventual therapist.
There it is.
Yeah.
Really quickly, in 2023, Joke in a Box, How to Write and Draw Jokes, was published by Andrews McMeel, which I always want to say McNeil because McMeel does not roll off the tongue.
It is weird. It doesn't.
McMeel.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a 70-card box set with prompts, exercises, and that. Do you refer to it as a box set? It's not a book.
It's really hard to. I mean, I always stumble over that. I'm like, it's a creativity deck. It's a thing. It's a book-like object. Yeah. I mean, box set sounds good. It makes it sound, like it's a cool collection of records or something like that.
Yeah.
It says on it a card deck, so I guess that also works. Right. But yeah, it is what it is. I hope all 4 people that bought it found it helpful.
I was just that was my very next question. How's it doing?
Yeah. I mean, it's in this. Well, I don't know if it was ever any easier. Books can be a tough sell. I'm proud of it. I stand behind it as work. I don't know how you make a book explode or a box set, explode into the public consciousness. And
you just draw it into every single cartoon that you have published for the New Yorker.
Exactly. Yeah. Why is it yellow? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, again, I do feel like if the people that bought it really get something out of it, then at the end of the day, I am happy with that.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about. I mean, time is running out, but we didn't even talk about your time with the New Yorker. As if I say as if it's over. It's not.
Right.
Your current time with the New Yorker.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been with them? Since 2008?
Since
correct?
2008.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
As a staff cartoonist? Not initially.
I mean, No. When did I get it? So I'm on contract, which, I mean, they say staff cartoonist. It's not like we go in, we don't, we're not like actual members of the staff.
No
It
desk.
just means that you have a contract and, you show them, like, they get first right of refusal for any comic work you produce. So
Gotcha.
when did that happen? I should remember. And I think
That's okay.
Time around when my daughter was born.
When was that?
2012.
There you go.
So yeah, at least I know that.
I sometimes struggle with that. When was your son born? 2000.
Yeah.
What was it?
Don't make me do math.
Yeah. For people who are listening, who maybe want to get into the New Yorker specifically, but just in cartooning in general, maybe they want to be the next Mimi Pond or Lynda Barry or whoever. What would you say is something that you wish you had known when you were starting out about breaking? I hate breaking in, but I can't think of a better word, and time is of the essence. So breaking in to that corner of illustration.
Basically, just like, I think a lifelong struggle, like, don't put the cart before the horse, like, don't try not to think about like where this will be or what it will, get you in terms, it's tough because, when the wolves are at the door, you're like, how do I make money?
Yep.
It sounds so ridiculous, but, stay true to your vision, and try to, listen to yourself. Yeah. So, like, I don't know. That's probably terrible advice.
It's not. It's not. This has come up a lot on the podcast over the years. This like, what advice we all tell each other. We tell each other. Why does that not sound right? That sounds right. Whatever.
Yeah.
We say to each other, which is good advice. It's fine advice, but then it's like, oh, okay. I'll just go ahead and do that. I'll just stay true to my vision.
Yeah.
And I say that I mentor illustrators every day, and I say something to that effect to them every single day. You need to be you. You can't just be somebody else. I mean, that's what that means.
It's true.
But staying true to your vision is one of those like, oh, that sounds so nice. You tweet it. Everyone's like, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's no guarantee it's going to actually like work.
That's the rub right there.
Yeah.
So then what?
I don't know. I honestly wish that, like, if I could roll back, and sorry, I know you have to go, but yeah, if I had a time machine, I would still go to art school. And then after that, I would go to trade school. So that I would know how to do something fucking useful, and remunerative that like I could do. And then also do this thing for my heart that maybe would, bring me success, but it wouldn't like have to.
Right.
That makes sense. So yeah, I don't know.
That's something that a lot of illustrators have to, they try to find the balance between putting a sufficient amount of pressure on their work. Like this work has to make me money, and putting too much pressure on that work, which gets you to, essentially hating what you do, breaking that relationship you have with art, burning out, and, other sort of not great feelings of being.
It's a tough balance.
Definitely.
Yeah.
On that note, what word of wisdom, piece of advice, word of encouragement, something that you'd like to share with listeners from you to them?
I'm torn between the trade school advice and the just always keep your eventual death and the heat death of the universe front of mind. I think those are both useful depending on where you are in life.
Take it a little easier. That's another way of saying that.
Yes, exactly. Just like any advice that you give is always advice that you the most need to hear. So, just try not to burden this weird, delicate thing that you do with like the weight of the like entire world of your entire existence.
To learn more about Emily, visit emilyflake.com. If you find value in this podcast, consider supporting it via our best-selling Substack or Patreon. While each offer different benefits, both provide access to dozens of exclusive episodes we call Extra Credit. You can find links to both on our website or show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.